The room went silent when Red Hawk smirked and asked her the call sign he didn't expect to fear. 700 hours, U.S. military base, briefing room humming with the low buzz of fluorescent lights and the static crackle of radios. Soldiers in tactical fatigues moved through the space, checking gear, holstering sidearms, and trading casual jokes over the morning briefing. The aroma of brewed coffee mingled with the faint metallic scent of rifle oil, and laughter bounced off the concrete walls. At the center of it all, a plain woman sat quietly, her posture straight, hands folded neatly, observing without comment. Before we begin this mission, hit subscribe and ring the bell, because some stories of courage never made the headlines, but they deserve to be heard. Tell us where you're watching from and who's the hero in your family. Red Hawk leaned back against the edge of the table, arms crossed, eyes scanning the room until they landed on her. His grin was easy, cocky. "So tell me," he said loud enough for the nearest rows to hear, "what's your call sign? Private?" His voice carried the weight of a joke of assumed superiority. "Something cute, I hope." The room responded with a ripple of chuckles, soldiers shifting to catch her reaction. Most expected embarrassment, a sheepish shrug, or a faint smile. Instead, she remained still, her dark eyes lifting to meet his. Silence began to seep into the space like a rising tide. Sarah, known only to few as Black Mamba, slowly rose from her chair. Her movements were deliberate, each step measured, her calm presence commanding attention without a word. The chatter faded completely. Even Sparks, normally quick with a joke or quip, paused mid-laugh. Whisper's eyes narrowed slightly, scanning the room as if recalculating the balance of authority in that space. "Black Mamba," she said finally, her tone level, a quiet certainty that carried the weight of reputation. The name landed like a hand on the back of every neck, a reminder of untold skill and quiet lethal efficiency. Red Hawk's smirk faltered, just slightly, his pulse picking up in a subtle rhythm he couldn't quite hide. The silence stretched, thick and unyielding. Red Hawk shifted, suddenly aware of the standard-issue M4 rifles holstered on nearly every belt. The pistols glinting under fluorescent light, and the muted hum of the radio channels filling gaps in conversation. He swallowed. His joke had misfired, and the room knew it. Sarah's gaze swept over the briefing room, calculating precise, assessing each soldier in the same methodical way she would scan a mission grid. Without raising her voice, she spoke of a past operation in sparse, controlled detail, an extraction under fire. A rogue cell tracked across 43 meters of unstable terrain, each move executed with minimal error and maximum impact. Every soldier who heard her felt the authority, the competence, the invisible weight that demanded acknowledgement. Red Hawk froze as the implications settled over him like a sudden cold shadow. "It was about timing," she said, "and knowing when the smallest action can make the difference between life and failure." Her eyes returned to him for a moment, and it was clear she didn't need to say more. The room had absorbed it. All the competence, the quiet menace, the unspoken command. She wasn't just another Marine. She was the standard others aspired to. Red Hawk's earlier confidence dissolved into the texture of the room, leaving a hollow awareness of his own overestimation. He had underestimated the woman he thought was simple, a mistake he felt in the tightening of his jaw and the slight flare of his nostrils. Sparks leaned closer to whisper and muttered under his breath, "I didn't think it was real." Whisper only nodded, eyes fixed on Sarah, calculating, respectful, reassessing the hierarchy of authority with every heartbeat. The air seemed to pulse with new energy, the subtle shift of power, unspoken but deeply felt. Even the radio seemed a quiet in acknowledgement of her presence, the brief crackle fading to background hum. No one interrupted her, no one laughed. She had said little, revealed less, yet everything was understood. Red Hawk, still standing, finally spoke, his voice lower, measured, carrying none of the levity he had intended moments ago. "Black Mamba," he said, the name tasting foreign on his tongue. "I didn't," he stopped, realizing any words would only underscore his earlier mistake. Sarah nodded once, almost imperceptibly, then returned to her seat, every movement fluid, intentional, calculated. Her quiet command left a residue in the room, an unspoken standard. The briefing proceeded, but the laughter was gone, replaced by a steady, vigilant tension that pulsed in time with every check of gear and clasp of holster. Red Hawk moved through his own motions differently now, aware of the depth of skill he had dismissed. By the time the morning briefing wound down, the lesson had been absorbed. A call sign, after all, was more than a name. It was a mark, a reputation earned and recognized quietly, decisively, without fanfare. And Black Mamba had just reminded every Marine in that room why some reputations could silence a crowd with a single word. Even as soldiers left the briefing room to begin their morning drills, a quiet reverence lingered. Red Hawk walked last, shoulders tense, eyes forward, reflecting on the invisible line he had just crossed between arrogance and respect. Sarah remained at her station, calm, controlled, the embodiment of competence, her gaze briefly meeting his once more before returning to her own preparations. Red Hawk knew, deep down, that this morning would be remembered not for the joke he made, but for the woman who had turned it into a moment none of them would forget. And when the next alert blared across the base, it would be her lead they would all follow. When the alert tone blared across the base, no one moved faster than Black Mamba 0500 hours. The perimeter lights flicked on over the concrete expanse of the forward base, casting long shadows across vehicles, crates, and tautly stretched camouflage nets. Soldiers sprang into motion, their boots striking hard against asphalt, rifles slung, gear clipped into place with practiced efficiency. The morning was already tense. The early hours carried a brittle chill, fog curling near the edges of the runways. Sparks crouched over a comms panel, hands dancing across keys and knobs, muttering as he confirmed encrypted channels. Whisper scanned the nearby tree line from a raised perch, binoculars tracking movement, eyes alert, pulse steady. Sarah Kane, call sign Black Mamba, had been preparing quietly, adjusting her sidearm, checking the fit of her tactical vest, reviewing coordinates in her head. She moved deliberately, every step considered, despite the chaos. Her eyes flicked to Red Hawk, who swaggered through the commotion. A hint of overconfidence in his posture, a grin too wide for the sudden alert. Red Hawk caught sight of her and called over, "Thought you were just a quiet desk rat, Black Mamba. Hope you're ready to keep up." His tone was teasing, but Sarah didn't respond with a word. She simply checked the distance to the target zone on her handheld GPS, calculated wind drift for small arms, and gestured for the team to follow her lead. "This is Sparks. Channels clear. All units check in," came the radio call, sharp and precise. The team gathered near the armored Humvees. Red Hawk vaulted into the lead vehicle, revving the engine, while Sarah pulled maps and digital overlays onto a tablet, plotting the most covert route to the mission objective. Whisper adjusted her headset, monitoring potential evac points. Every second counted. The convoy moved out, vehicles rolling over gravel and hardened asphalt, engine slow and steady, Sarah kept pace on foot beside the rear vehicle, scanning terrain in meters and yards, marking choke points, noting cover and concealment. Red Hawk's confidence carried him forward, but small miscalculations forced him to glance repeatedly at Black Mamba's movements, noting her clarity and precision. Halfway to the extraction site, the first contact occurred, a small perimeter patrol. Enemy markers, partially obscured by dense underbrush, engaged the column. M4 rifles came up in unison, bursts of controlled fire cutting through the haze. Black Mamba dropped into a crouch, issuing hand signals, rerouting sparks to maintain communications, whisper to cover the flanks. She moved like a shadow, silently redirecting the team, each instruction efficient, the balance of control precise. Red Hawk tried to assert control, barking orders over the crackle of radio static, but a sudden snap of a branch, a barely audible shift in the undergrowth, froze him. Black Mamba assessed the threat in seconds, her gaze sharp, movements faster than reaction alone could explain. "Hold formation. Wait for my mark," she said quietly. The team obeyed instantly, rifles raised, eyes scanning. The ambush unfolded in a burst of chaos. Enemy fire pinned the convoy momentarily behind overturned vehicles. Dust and smoke filled the air, and Red Hawk realized instinctively that any impulsive move could cost lives. He looked to Sarah for direction, watching as she moved through the zone, neutralizing threats with precise rifle bursts, coordinating flanking maneuvers without hesitation. Target confirmed, 120 meters. "Left flank," she called over the radio, voice calm. "Engage on my mark." Red Hawk followed without question, a cold realization settling over him. His prior assumptions about leadership, skill, and authority had been flawed. Every misjudgment from the morning's jokes now felt glaring. He adjusted, mimicking her movements, trusting the flow she dictated, and for the first time felt the weight of following someone without ego, someone whose decisions could save or endanger lives in equal measure. Minutes stretched, each one thick with tension. Black Mamba moved seamlessly through the ambush, directing fire, marking safe paths, and recalculating distances with exact precision. Sparks rerouted the Cum's whisper, checked the surrounding perimeters. All coordinated under Sarah's silent yet absolute authority. The threat ended as quickly as it had begun. Enemies neutralized, and the convoy resumed movement with only minor scratches on vehicles and egos. The team reached a temporary staging point behind a ridge. Soldiers exhaled, rifles lowered, the rhythm of battle leaving their muscles taut and trembling. Red Hawk's eyes met Sarah's, a mix of awe and humility in the glance. No words were necessary. He had seen her at work, a disciplined force operating with unmatched clarity. Respect settled firmly in place of sarcasm, and the weight of previous misjudgments pressed quietly against his chest. Sarah's gaze swept the ridge, calculating next steps, movements, distances. She maintained her calm, the tension of the operation flowing through her awareness like a measured pulse. She didn't speak of her past accolades, didn't need to. The efficiency of her command, the trust she commanded in moments of lethal uncertainty, spoke louder than any rank or call sign could. Red Hawk adjusted his vest, rifle slung low, shoulders straightened. He followed the direction of her nods, the silent communication of an operative who didn't flinch, who didn't question, who simply acted with unwavering skill. The lesson was unmistakable. Leadership wasn't about bravado. It was about precision, clarity, and timing. As dawn approached, the team moved toward the next checkpoint. Aware of unseen threats, but confident in the flow dictated by Black Mamba, Red Hawk walked beside her. Humility and newfound trust in every measured step, understanding that today's mission was a test not just of skill, but of judgment, and he had been schooled without a word, raised in anger. The next phase of the operation awaited, and every soldier knew it would demand the same focus, precision, and courage that Black Mamba embodied. And when the extraction began, every eye would be on her to lead them through the danger ahead. Red Hawk's pulse raced as Black Mamba mapped the escape route in seconds flat, 530 hours. The team moved through the narrow corridor of dense forest that flanked the extraction zone. Dawn light barely touched the treetops, and shadows stretched long over uneven ground. Each footstep was deliberate, measured, rifles ready, eyes scanning every brush line. Sarah Kane, Black Mamba, led with a quiet authority that left no question about who commanded the operation. Her gaze shifted constantly, calculating distances of 300 to 500 meters, anticipating danger before it emerged. Red Hawk followed close, every instinct screaming caution, yet trusting her judgment completely for the first time. Whisper covered the left flank, scanning with binoculars while adjusting her comms headset to pick up distant chatter. Sparks monitored the frequency, ensuring the encrypted lines remained clear. Their eyes met briefly as Sarah gave the subtle nod, signaling the team to move forward in tighter formation. The tension was palpable. Every movement carried the weight of potential ambush. The first shot rang out. A sniper had locked on Red Hawk from a concealed perch 50 meters away, the crack of the rifle echoing through the forest. Dust kicked up around the team, and instinctive training took over. Red Hawk dove behind a fallen log, rifle raised, heart hammering. Black Mamba assessed the threat instantly. "Cover left. Move," she commanded, voice steady and precise. Red Hawk followed, trusting every direction. She moved faster than reaction alone, clearing sightlines, marking safe angles, and guiding Whisper and Sparks as they adjusted positions. "Target acquired. 50 meters. High cover," she said over the radio.com. "Engage on my mark." Her rifle fired a single perfect shot, neutralizing the sniper before another round could be fired. Red Hawk exhaled, adrenaline flooding, his previous arrogance washed away by the sheer precision of her actions. He realized the full weight of her reputation. The nickname Black Mamba was not legend, it was fact. Every calculated movement, every decision made under fire, demonstrated skill honed to lethal perfection. The team continued toward the extraction point. Vehicles waited at GPS coordinates Sarah had confirmed earlier, engines running and doors open. She signaled them forward, maintaining awareness of the terrain and unseen threats. Red Hawk kept pace, following her gestures, aware of how easily a misstep could turn deadly. Each meter traversed reinforced the trust he had developed. Following her was no longer a choice but a necessity. Enemy fire sporadically erupted from concealed positions. Sarah adapted instantly, repositioning the team to cover exposed angles while keeping Red Hawk and Whisper protected. Her voice over the radio remained steady. "Check left, move to high ground, hold formation." Sparks coordinated support, fire, and relayed positions back to command, the encrypted chatter flowing seamlessly under her guidance. Every action was precise, fluid, efficient. Red Hawk caught himself studying her movements, realizing that confidence in her leadership had replaced his earlier bravado. Every gesture, every micro-adjustment she made was calculated to maximize survival and minimize exposure. He felt the tension of responsibility shift from his shoulders to hers, but it was not burden, it was clarity, an understanding that skill and calm under pressure commanded results more than ego ever could. As they neared the extraction point, the team came under a final barrage of rifle fire. Red Hawk froze momentarily, but a subtle tilt of Sarah's head, a shift in stance, and he followed without hesitation. She neutralized the last threats with deliberate, exact shots, coordinating cover and egress like a conductor guiding an orchestra. Whisper adjusted suppressive fire, Sparks maintained communications, and the vehicles moved into position smoothly, every soldier trusting her timing implicitly. They boarded the armored Humvees and moved out of the danger zone. Relief coursed through the team, exhaustion mixing with adrenaline. Red Hawk looked at Black Mamba, his respect solidified. There was no need for praise. Her quiet competence had spoken louder than words ever could. The lesson was clear. Leadership demanded skill, foresight, and unflinching calm. All else was secondary. By the time they reached a secure base perimeter at 0615 hours, the extraction complete, the threat neutralized, Red Hawk felt a humbling shift within himself. He had witnessed firsthand the difference between perception and reality, between arrogance and mastery. The team debriefed efficiently, acknowledging each other's contributions, but all eyes invariably rested on Sarah Kane, the operative who had commanded silence, focus, and trust in equal measure. Her calm authority remained intact, understated, yet undeniable. A quiet force that had carried them safely through danger. Red Hawk followed her lead, silently, aware that this day had redefined his understanding of courage and skill, respect and recognition, action and restraint. And when the next mission called, he knew without doubt that he would follow Black Mamba wherever the danger led.